4 years truck drivers who traveled Highway 47 at night shared the same strange warning with each other. If you see someone standing on the side of the road after midnight, do not stop. Do not slow down. And do not look back in your mirrors. Most people thought it was just another highway ghost story. Every long road in America seems to have one. A lonely stretch of asphalt. A strange legend. Something people talk about to stay awake during long drives. But the story of Highway 47 was different. Because over time the stories started matching too closely. The highway runs through hundreds of miles of empty land. Long dark forests. Small towns that disappear quickly behind you. Gas stations that close before midnight. And for long stretches there is absolutely nothing. Just road and darkness. Truck drivers spend thousands of hours on these roads, and they notice patterns other people would never see. The first report started sometime in the early 1990s. A driver named Carl was hauling freight through the mountains during a late shift. It was around 1 in the morning, and the road was completely empty. His headlights stretched across the pavement and into the trees on both sides. Then suddenly, he saw someone standing on the shoulder of the road. The figure was tall, wearing dark clothes, not moving. Carl slowed down for a moment because that was unusual. No houses nearby, no broken-down cars, no gas stations for miles. Just a man standing there in the darkness watching the highway. Carl rolled past him slowly and looked in his mirror. The man had not moved. He was still standing there watching the road. Carl told other drivers about the strange sight later that night at a truck stop. One older driver immediately looked concerned. He told Carl something strange. "You saw the man on Highway 47, didn't you?" Carl asked how he knew. The driver said he had seen the same figure 3 years earlier. Same place, same posture, standing perfectly still beside the road. After that conversation, the story spread quietly among long-distance drivers. People started asking each other if they had ever seen someone standing along Highway 47 at night. And surprisingly, many of them had. Always late at night. Always alone. Always watching the road. Most drivers ignored it and kept going. But then something else started happening. A woman traveling between 2 towns on the highway disappeared one winter night. Her car was later found abandoned on the shoulder of the road. The doors were unlocked. The engine was cold. There were no signs of a crash or mechanical failure. Just an empty car sitting beside the highway. Police searched the forest nearby, but found nothing. No footprints. No signs of struggle. No explanation. Months later, a second disappearance happened on the same road. A college student driving home late at night never arrived. His vehicle was found several miles from where the first car had been discovered, parked neatly beside the road. Again, there were no signs of violence. Just a car, an empty highway, and a missing driver. Police initially treated the cases as unrelated disappearances. Highways stretch across large areas, and strange things happen sometimes. But then one detail changed the investigation. A truck driver came forward with a story. On the same night the student disappeared, the driver had passed through the exact section of highway where the car was later found. And he saw something strange. A man standing beside the road. Tall, motionless, watching the passing vehicles. The driver assumed it was someone waiting for help. But when he looked back in his mirror, the man was gone. No sound, no movement, just gone. When investigators heard this, they began reviewing older reports from truck drivers. Slowly, a disturbing pattern began to form. Over the years, dozens of drivers had reported seeing the same mysterious figure along different sections of Highway 47. Always at night, always alone, and always standing beside the road watching cars pass. But there was something even stranger. The sightings always happened near the same locations where abandoned vehicles had later been discovered, as if the man was somehow connected to the disappearances. Police set up late-night patrols hoping to catch the person responsible. But nothing happened while officers were present. The highway remained empty, quiet, completely normal. Weeks passed with no sightings. Then one night a truck driver named Miguel reported something unusual over the radio. He said he had just seen the figure again, standing on the shoulder about 10 miles north of a small town along the highway. Officers responded quickly and drove toward the location. But by the time they arrived, the road was empty. No man, no footprints, nothing. Miguel insisted the figure had been there only minutes earlier. He described the man as extremely tall and very thin, wearing dark clothing that blended almost completely into the night. The most disturbing detail was the way the figure watched the road. According to Miguel, the man did not wave for help or move toward the truck. He simply stood there staring at the passing vehicle as if studying it. Investigators eventually installed hidden traffic cameras along several sections of the highway, hoping to capture the mysterious figure on video. Months passed before one of the cameras finally recorded something unusual. At exactly 1:43 in the morning, a tall silhouette appeared at the edge of the camera frame. The figure stepped slowly out of the darkness and stood beside the road. The camera recorded the figure for nearly 2 minutes. During that time, 3 vehicles passed the location. The man did not move. He did not attempt to signal the drivers. He simply watched each vehicle as it drove past. Then, without warning, he turned and walked off the road into the forest. The video ended there. When police searched the area the next morning, they found nothing. No footprints. No signs of where the figure had gone. Just trees and darkness stretching deep into the forest. After the video was released, more drivers came forward with similar stories. Some said they had seen the man several times over the years. Others said they avoided that stretch of highway completely after midnight. The strangest part of the investigation was that no one could identify the figure. The footage was too dark to see a face clearly. The height and build were unusual, but not unique enough to match to a specific person. And there were no nearby houses where someone could easily walk to the road unnoticed. Eventually, the case slowly faded from public attention. The disappearances remained unsolved. The mysterious figure was never identified. But among long-distance truck drivers, the story never disappeared. Even today, drivers who regularly travel Highway 47 still mention the warning sometimes when talking late at night over the radio. If you see someone standing on the side of the road after midnight, do not stop. Do not slow down. And whatever you do, do not look back in your mirrors. Because sometimes when drivers do look back, they notice something unsettling. The figure is no longer standing on the side of the road. Instead, it is standing in the middle of the highway, watching their truck disappear into the darkness. Story: the last gas station on Route 9. At 1:32 in the morning, a man walked into the last gas station on Route 9. The station stood completely alone in the middle of a long, empty highway surrounded by forest and fields that stretched for miles. The kind of place where almost nobody stops after midnight. The security camera above the counter recorded everything that night. At first, nothing looked strange. The man opened the door and walked inside slowly. He looked tired, like someone who had been driving for a long time. The cashier behind the counter greeted him, but the man did not respond. Instead, he walked to the refrigerator section and stood there without moving. For almost 30 seconds, he simply stared at the glass doors. The cashier asked again if he needed help. The man slowly turned his head toward the counter, but his face remained strangely blank. Then he asked a question that the cashier would remember for the rest of his life. He asked if anyone had stopped there earlier that night asking for help. The cashier said no. The man looked relieved for a moment, but also nervous. He walked back toward the counter and quietly asked another question. He asked if the road behind the station had another exit. The cashier told him the truth. There was only one road in and one road out. Just the highway. The man looked toward the dark windows of the station and then leaned closer to the counter. He said something strange. He said that someone had been following his car for nearly 50 miles. Always far behind. Always keeping the same distance. The man said he tried speeding up, but the other car matched his speed. When he slowed down, the other car slowed down too. The strangest part was that the headlights behind him never got closer. They stayed exactly the same distance the entire time. The cashier looked outside, but the highway beyond the station was completely empty. No cars. No headlights. Just darkness stretching across the road. The man seemed slightly calmer after hearing that. He bought a bottle of water and stood near the window watching the road. Several minutes passed, and nothing happened. Eventually, the man walked outside and returned to his car. The security camera outside recorded him driving away slowly back onto the highway. The cashier returned to his routine, expecting a quiet night like any other. But about 10 minutes later, something unusual happened. The security camera pointed at the road captured headlights approaching the station. A single vehicle slowly drove into the parking lot and stopped. But the car that arrived was not the same one the man had been driving earlier. The vehicle that stopped outside the station was an old dark sedan with its headlights still on. The engine remained running, but no one stepped out. The cashier waited for the driver to enter the store, but the door never opened. Instead, the car simply sat there in the empty parking lot with the headlights shining toward the station windows. After about 2 minutes, the sedan slowly reversed and pulled back onto the highway. The cashier thought about calling the police, but decided it was probably just a tired driver turning around. 30 minutes later, a patrol officer stopped at the same gas station during a routine highway check. The cashier told the officer about the strange man who believed someone was following him. The officer immediately looked concerned. Earlier that evening, another driver had reported a suspicious vehicle slowly following traffic along Route 9. The description matched the dark sedan from the camera footage. Police searched the highway for several hours that night, but never located the vehicle. The next morning, something even stranger was discovered. About 20 miles down the highway, the car belonging to the first man was found abandoned on the side of the road. The driver's door was open. The keys were still in the ignition, but the man himself had completely disappeared. No signs of a crash. No footprints leading away from the road. Just an empty car beside a silent stretch of highway. When investigators later reviewed the gas station footage, they noticed something disturbing. When the man stood near the window watching the road, he appeared calm because he believed the car following him had disappeared. But the camera outside the station revealed something he never saw. The dark sedan had already entered the parking lot once before while he was inside. It had parked just outside the camera's frame, waiting quietly in the darkness until he left the station. The identity of the driver of that vehicle was never discovered, and the man who stopped for water at 1:32 in the morning on Route 9 was never seen again. Story: The house that was always watching. In the small town of Ridgewood, there was a house that nobody liked driving past after dark. The building itself looked completely normal during the day. Just another old two-story home sitting quietly at the end of a narrow street lined with trees. But at night, the house felt different. People in the town often said the same thing about it. They always felt like someone was watching them when they passed by. For years, nobody paid much attention to that feeling. Old houses sometimes create strange impressions, especially when the streetlights cast long shadows across the windows. But one night, a delivery driver named Ethan experienced something that made the entire town uneasy. Ethan was delivering food late one evening when he noticed the address for his next delivery was the old house at the end of Ridgewood Street. He had driven through the town many times, but had never stopped there before. The road leading to the house was unusually dark. The streetlights ended halfway down the block, leaving the last part of the road almost completely black. When Ethan parked his car, he noticed something strange immediately. Every window in the house was completely dark. No lights inside. No porch light. Nothing. Yet the order clearly showed that someone inside had requested the delivery only minutes earlier. Ethan walked slowly up the path toward the front door. The silence around the house was almost uncomfortable. No sound from inside. No television. No voices. Just the faint rustling of trees in the wind. He knocked on the door and waited. No response. After about 10 seconds, he knocked again, slightly louder. Still nothing. Ethan checked the order again to make sure he had the correct address. As he stood there looking down at his phone, he suddenly felt something strange. The feeling that someone inside the house was standing very close to the door, listening. Not moving. Just waiting on the other side. Ethan knocked one final time and said the delivery had arrived. For several seconds, nothing happened. Then slowly the door handle began to move. The door opened only a few inches, revealing complete darkness inside the house. A quiet voice from somewhere deeper in the hallway said to leave the food on the porch. Ethan placed the bag down and stepped back. He tried to see the person speaking, but the interior of the house remained completely dark. The voice said thank you, and the door slowly closed again. As Ethan walked back to his car, he felt something even stranger. The sensation that someone inside the house was standing at one of the windows watching him leave. The next morning, Ethan told the story to a friend who lived in Ridgewood. The friend immediately recognized the address and looked uneasy. The house Ethan described had been empty for nearly 6 months. The previous owner had moved away and the property had not been sold yet. Curious and slightly disturbed, Ethan returned to the street later that afternoon. In daylight, the house looked ordinary again. But when he approached the porch, he noticed something unsettling. The delivery bag he had left the night before was still sitting exactly where he placed it, completely untouched. The receipt attached to the bag showed the order had been placed online using a temporary account that could not be traced to any person in the town. When Ethan later checked the delivery app records, he noticed something else. The phone number used to place the order was no longer active only minutes after the delivery had been completed. That might have been the end of the story if not for what happened several nights later. Another delivery driver reported receiving an order from the exact same address. When he arrived, the house was once again completely dark, but this time the driver refused to approach the door. Instead, he called the number attached to the order. The phone rang only once before the call disconnected. Seconds later, every light inside the empty house suddenly turned on at the same time. The driver immediately left the street without completing the delivery. When police later checked the property, they found no one inside. The electricity in the house had been disconnected weeks earlier, yet the lights had clearly been seen turning on from the outside. Since then, no other deliveries have been sent to that address. But residents in Ridgewood still say that late at night, when cars pass the end of that street, the windows of the old house sometimes reflect something that should not be there. The faint silhouette of someone standing inside watching the road.